Hello and welcome back to what is the first episode of the Warwick F1 Show. So, Raw Sport and Warwick F1 Society have teamed up to bring you our F1 content over the next year. And obviously, we start with the triple header special. We haven't been covering those over the last few weeks just because I've been a bit busy, holidays, things like that. But now we're back and we're going to be looking at the Belgian Grand Prix, the Dutch Grand Prix, and the quite dramatic Italian Grand Prix, where we saw the title rivals collide for the second time this year. But obviously, I can't do that on my own. So here is Jack Rowe, part of Warwick F1 Society. How are you doing, Jack?
Hello, I didn't realise we had a name yet. That's good. That means I don't have to think of one up. I'm doing well. I hope you enjoyed your holiday. Glad to get back into it, really.
Yeah, no, it is glad to get back into it. And yeah, the name, I just thought of it on the fly. Obviously, we can change it. And if anyone does have any suggestions, because I know me and Jack were brainstorming for quite a while and couldn't really come up with anything. But I mean, I'm sure this will do if we haven't got anything else so far.
Yeah, I mean, name it after Warwick F1. That's fine. We'll take that, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we may as well get started with obviously the first race of the triple header that we haven't covered. Well, was it really a race? So the Belgian Grand Prix. I'll run through the results quickly. Verstappen in first, Russell in second in the Williams, Hamilton in third, Ricciardo in fourth, Vettel in fifth, Gasly in sixth, Ocon and Leclerc in seventh and eighth. Williams, Latifi in the Williams in ninth, and then Sainz in the Ferrari in 10th. I mean, wasn't that race? Well, it wasn't really a race, was it? I sat there for hours waiting for the rain to stop, and then it just never did. I mean, I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, if I could be so bold, I think qualifying is probably worth mentioning. It's not worth talking about the race, is it? Yeah, no, that was the one of the three I managed to watch live, and I watched about 3 hours, I think, and then about half an hour from the end, I was like, "This isn't happening, is it?" And I turned off, and I'm so glad it didn't actually take place because I would have felt like I would have missed that. Yeah, it's a shame, but obviously for safety reasons, it's best to have no race at all. Whether or not there should be results, points handed out, podiums given, etc., is a different matter, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll come to that. So obviously we had the wet qualifying on Saturday, very, very wet. Saw Lando Norris crash at the start of Q3. Obviously, Vettel was one of the most vocal on the team radio, saying that they shouldn't have been sent out. But then, I mean, and yeah, do you think they should have been sent out? It seemed like conditions did improve at the end, but maybe just then was too wet for any of the teams to be running, and the FIA should have been red flagging the event.
Well, I mean, we've got hindsight, haven't we? We know that when you see one of the drivers say it's too wet, and then immediately he was the first driver out on circuit, wasn't he, Lando? He's the first driver straight up Eau Rouge. You've not even gone 3 corners and you've crashed it. So yeah, I mean, if I'm allowed the power of hindsight, I would say yeah, it should have been red flagged, but it's so difficult to say that at the time. I don't really blame the stewards for trying to keep it going.
Yeah, and I mean, the nature of the crash was quite dramatic as well. Obviously, coming through Eau Rouge and Radion, losing it up the corner and then smashing into the barrier going up the hill. And then I noticed when the race took place, or especially after the qualifying, and what happened in the W Series events, what's happened in GT, I think it was GT3 with Jack Aitken, that there has been a lot of talk about that corner and maybe even whether it is safe enough for F1 anymore.
Yeah, and there was I mean, it's not just F1, it's there was I can't remember what it was, 2018 WEC, I think. There was another big accident there, and obviously you've got the tragic death and collision between Juan Manuel Correa and Antoine Hubert a couple of years ago. Yeah, it's a really difficult one. I'm always going to land on the side of safety. I think that's just my point of view. I think a lot of people advocating for moving for giving more runoff, but it's really difficult there because it's not called Eau Rouge for no reason. There's a river right behind it. So yeah, it's difficult. I don't know what you can do really. The only suggestion I've heard that makes sense is you basically, because all right, we're gonna put nerd. I'm gonna put nerd faces on because we're really talking about Radion, aren't we? With the top of the hill. But if you make Eau Rouge more shallow, rather than it being a strong left-hander and then you're flying up the hill, you make it just straight and then a right kink.
Yeah, either that or I've seen possibly introducing tech pro barriers to that corner instead of the tire barriers, because we've seen it on a lot of tracks. I mean, I'm thinking maybe to Russia, the race we're coming to a few years ago. Carlos Sainz lost it on the back straight, went into the barrier, but he sort of stayed in the barrier rather than bouncing out, because that's sort of what the tech pro barrier is designed to do. It's designed to sort of not trap the car, but just keep it in the barrier, so there's not much of a risk. And I think that possibly could be a solution. I'm not entirely sure why they haven't done that so far. I mean, if you know more than I do, then yeah, give me the insight.
Well, I mean, I don't really. From a physics point of view, if the energy of the car is, yeah, you'd want to absorb all the energy, wouldn't you? By throwing the car back, you've got all of the stopping force and the reverse. I don't know. Yeah, Tech Pro barriers should be added. You can't have them. Well, you either need all Tech Pro or all tire barriers, though. I think I don't know if they can go together. I'm sure I don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. There's people a lot smarter than us working on these solutions, and I think they will be working on them after the incidents we've seen over the last few years. But anyway, we saw the qualifying session in the end, and there's only one standout star that we have to talk about, and that is George Russell in the Williams, putting it on the front, what would have been the front row of the grid in the Williams, which is, I mean, that is, I'd say, easily the standout qualifying performance of the season. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, and beyond that, frankly, I'm trying to think back to when someone else put something in that good, and like, was it Leclerc at Silverstone last year? He went third or fourth, but that's the last one I could think that was really just wow. I mean,
yeah,
that was, I don't know, that was more impressive. Obviously, it's a Williams second. Okay, it's raining, but oh my god, can't believe he beat Hamilton as well.
I mean, I think back to maybe even 2008 in Italy when Vettel, in what was a lower midfield car, the Toro Rosso, put it on pole. And like, you see him go purple in sector one, and you're like, okay, that's a good sector one, but maybe the Williams is set up more for like straight line performance. Then you see him go purple in sector two, and you're like, this could be a pole lap. And to be honest, it almost was 3/10 around Spa. Really isn't that much. He was 3/10 behind Verstappen, and it's just incredible, really.
Yeah, you don't need much much extra top speed for that, do you? Or I remember because the Williams had a different setup, wasn't it? It had the wet setup, and okay, it wasn't just because of that. It's because George did an incredible lap as well, but that made a difference. Still, though, a little bit of extra beef in that car, and you would have had, easy pole. It could have been a second if he'd been in a similar car. So.
Yeah, I mean, he qualified ahead of Hamilton, only just behind Verstappen, and ahead of a lot of drivers that are in much better cars than he is. Just underlying how good George Russell is, and that, like, I guess it's not really a spoiler alert, and that he does deserve the Mercedes seat that he has been given over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, if we're jumping onto that already, yeah, no doubt, absolutely no doubt. It's really difficult for Mercedes because Bottas is criminally underrated. He does perform. He performs well, not great, not Hamilton level, but you can't expect that of most people. And I think we've seen with putting Sergio in the Red Bull, kind of those two cars have two phenomenal drivers in, and Bottas he's kind of stranded. I really hope that George is going to go in there and he's going to make himself look good, and I think he will. But yeah, it's tough for them.
Yeah, and I mean that was along with penalties was the top 10 grid, and that is the grid that you see on the screen now because as we mentioned before, there was no race. The clocks rolled around to 2 o'clock our time. It was red flagged, then it just kept being red flagged, and then they got sent out for. Actually, no, that was it. They got sent out at 2 o'clock, brought straight back in for a lap. Then we sat there for 2 hours watching rain, as only F1 fans can do in this situation. Then they went out for another lap, which was, to be honest, just so they could get a result. Which I mean, we'll come on to that because I mean, personally, I don't think there should have been a result, but eventually we got to the point where they just called the race off. I mean, I watched that. I mean, I sat there for hours, as I mentioned earlier, just hoping and praying that a race would go ahead because we've never had anything like this before, have we?
No, I don't think so. You did forget one thing. You forgot
Oh,
Perez sticking it in the barriers
oh yeah.
on the formation lap. Yeah, that was. I mean, that provided enough drama for 2 hours, with didn't it? Plus, stick a few memes in there of people being asleep and Gasly getting his sausages, and you're good. No,
Yeah,
no,
I
it
mean,
was.
oh yeah, you go.
No, go. No, you go for it.
Oh no, I was just about to say it's so we had, I think it was Adelaide 80 in Adelaide 91, I think, was the shortest Grand Prix ending after 14 laps, but we've never had a torrential rainstorm last for this long, last for the hours and cancelling the entire Grand Prix. I think no one really had any idea what was going on, like the FIA included.
You're an absolute encyclopedia, aren't you? I had no idea about that. Yeah, you're right though. They did kind of. They were so adamant. This was going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. That they started the clock. They stopped the clock. What was going on? No idea. Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. I don't mind that they kind of ignored their 3 hours rule, but they should just not have started it to begin with. So I don't know what was happening.
I mean, at one point we were even talking about running the race on Monday, which I think almost would have been an option had we not had to go to Zandvoort in a week. I do think that maybe if Belgium was the last of a triple header and we had 2 weeks, that they might have considered Monday as an option, but obviously the logistics of it meant we had to head to Zandvoort, and they probably did have to do the event on a Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to talk to the TV people and the track and everything else, but I'm sure they could have whipped something up. You see NASCAR do it all the time, although I suppose they're more used to it. In fact, I believe IndyCar do it as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're racing on oval circuits, like 200 miles an hour top speed. They cannot run in the wet. Maybe IndyCar can do it on roads or track circuits, but obviously, I guess it does come down to safety, and that's what they were thinking about here. They couldn't run the race if it was too wet, and when they did go out on the track, even behind the safety car, you could just see how much spray there was.
Yeah, apparently Verstappen couldn't. Yeah, well, I don't know why he wanted them to get racing, because he took his full 12.5 points from that race. But
yeah, and as you say there, they did run the 2 laps required, but were under the, I think it's 25% distance, or is it 50?
75%.
Oh, it's under 75%. Okay.
Yeah.
So they did run the under 75%, so they were given half points, meaning that Verstappen got 12.5, Hamilton got 7.5, and Russell got 9 for his first podium. I mean, do you think there should have been points?
No, I just flat out no, because they've not raced, have they? You can't overtake. The only position change has been through penalties, and no, you can't give points for that. Sorry. If the most it should have been is the same as we have in qualifying and in sprint. I've got to get this right. In sprint, where it's 3, 2, 1, because that's kind of the same situation where you haven't run the race yet. That would be the only acceptable one for me. But
Yeah, no,
Hey-ho.
I agree with you. I think just because there wasn't a race, it's just like you can't really give points for a race, essentially. I know they wanted a result. And I think that's very clear from them sending the cars out again. But was it really worth it? And I don't think so. And I just hope the title doesn't come down to those 5 points that Verstappen has gained over Hamilton, because if you, I mean, it's very like you can say that a lot of other incidents have affected Verstappen. Like we think back to Silverstone, to Hungary, and then as we're going to come on to later, to Italy. But they have come under a racing environment, so they're not deserved losses, but they are losses that have come like naturally. But Verstappen has gained these 5 points unnaturally because he's been given them through like just without a race, and I just don't think that's particularly fair. And I do think it's almost a bit annoying that even if we had this, that the title still won't come down to half a point, because both Hamilton and Verstappen were given half a point, and we won't get like a louder Prost in '84.
Yeah, well, it's in '84 they were still running the old point system where you got 9 points for a win, so it's a half a point would be even closer then, wouldn't it? Or relatively.
Yeah.
I guess it's so difficult to say if it's going to keep going that way though, because it is only 5 point gap at the moment, isn't it? It's exactly 5 points.
Yeah,
There you
it
go.
is 5 points.
They should be level. Come on, F1, what are you doing?
But yeah, I mean, but you, on the flip side, maybe you reward George Russell for his excellent qualifying. But I guess even if I think handing out the trophies would have been fine. But maybe just everyone agreeing, let's just scrap the points for this race. I know it's in the rules, but as we saw during the event, the rules weren't really followed when it suited everyone. I guess in a way, because obviously you could argue, I guess Mercedes could argue that Perez shouldn't have been let back in the race. Maybe if they had got going, then like people can argue that, oh, the race should have stopped for 3 hours, 4 hours. Should the time shouldn't have started, or should have started. Like there wasn't really any precedent to follow, and I'm pretty sure that the FIA, if they wanted to, could have just kicked the rules out the window points wise as well.
Well, they wouldn't have needed to, because it was a clear, measured decision to send the cars out again. There was no hope of running. It had been heavier rain than previously. So, you knew there wasn't going to be wheel-to-wheel action. So they just decided to assign points anyway, because they know that that's the 2 laps that it required. So they sent them out. That's their decision. It's not like, oh, it's just the rules, we can't stop it. They made that decision at the time. So that's their own bed and they've got to lie in it. I'm like you. I hope it doesn't come down to those 5 points. I don't think it should have been assigned. Maybe there's some debate about, because they don't have to give fans money back. I think that's rubbish, but don't know.
I think they will probably. I think they're still looking at it, but I think they will end up giving fans their money, maybe like at least some of their money back. And to be honest, if this does happen in the future, and I'm quite surprised it's not happened before, then that they will have like a set of rules, and they probably won't give out points. I think they were caught in the crossfire and just wanted to almost get the weekend over and done with.
Yeah, I'm not letting them off the hook that easily. I still think they should have. They should just not have done it. But well, it's done now, isn't it? We'll have to see if it has an effect or not.
Exactly, we'll have to wait and see. But a week later, we did have a race finally, and we, for the first time ever, oh gosh, what is going on? Oh no, hang on. Technical difficulties for those
You
listening.
nearly had it. You nearly had it.
Make that, and then there we go. So the Dutch Grand Prix, first time it's been held in 30. I think it was 1985. So 36 years now. It was weird seeing the last 5 winners come up, and then you see like Prost, Arnoux, Lauda on the list. But yeah, the top 10 finishes: Verstappen taking another win, Hamilton in second, Bottas in third, Gasly with a great performance in fourth for the AlphaTauri, Leclerc in fifth, Alonso in sixth, Sainz in seventh. Oh god, that's hard to say. Sainz in seventh. There we go. Perez in eighth in the Red Bull. Ocon in ninth, and Norris rounding out the top 10. I didn't watch this race, not because I just don't like Verstappen and won't support him. I had a power cut. Like 10 minutes before the start of the race, so I only managed to catch the last 10 minutes. But from what I saw on the highlights, I think it was one of those that might have been worth missing. Is that right?
Well, it's a disaster for you, isn't it? I don't think worth missing is the call. We've had some X-Zone races this year. That just wasn't one of them. It was, there was still, Perez was coming through the field, and we had so much action on that first lap. That was incredible. We had like 5 or 6 collisions. I can't even remember how many. So many. And then, up the front, it was a bit meh. There was, strategy-wise, it was just everyone went flat out and did 2 stops. We had some fun at the end with Bottas, but it was just a meh race out of a season of really good ones. So.
Yeah, I think this race especially seems like another that Mercedes during the race were like, oh, we're going to lose this one, so we may as well just get to the finish, get there, like just make it there, and we'll take the 7-point loss to Verstappen from Hamilton and just keep the gap as low as possible. I'm thinking back to maybe in Azerbaijan where we saw Verstappen sort of getting to the finish until obviously all the drama happened, and to maybe a certain extent, both of the Austrias definitely seemed to be just Mercedes didn't have any pace for the event, and it does seem to be slightly similar tracks, like the track, like the short, fast sweeping tracks. Mercedes don't seem to have that edge, and Red Bull definitely do.
Yeah, I think Mercedes are making more mistakes this year. They've let Verstappen through more. Lewis has had to do more overtaking, and this is just a track that doesn't lend itself to that. All the banking, I don't know if it's made it worse or whether it just wasn't good in the first place, but it's just not an overtaking track. And there's nothing they could do. They did the right thing on strategy. They managed to get Bottas to back up Verstappen to within, I think, 0.6 it was or something. But you just can't overtake. It was a front straight or nothing. Didn't stop Perez, but those two drivers, too similar pace.
Yeah, I mean, just not really anything Hamilton could have done, and obviously Verstappen was probably buoyed on, especially by the Dutch fans, who, to be honest, arguably the best fans of the year. Like just the amount of like smoke, noise, orange, just everywhere. I never want a Verstappen win, but I'm not entirely disappointed he won there just to see the atmosphere, especially after the race.
Yeah, don't tell the Australians that you said that. They've not been there for a couple of years, but they're well known for their support. Yeah, I mean, the thing that annoyed me was the smoke on the track while there's still drivers going around at the end of the race, because they were still watching Hamilton see if he got the fastest lap or not, and he was coming down the start finish straight and you can't see anything, and that's dangerous. I don't like that, and I don't like the booing, but. Yes, it's nice to have atmosphere. F1's gone the way more of being divisive, I think. I don't know whether that's because I'm seeing more of Twitter as, in my job as publicity officer, and that's that. And but yeah, I don't know. Social media is definitely on the up for F1 as well. So we're probably just seeing more of it, but it does seem very divisive as of late.
Yeah, we'll come back to the divisive
a little
Twitter,
hint to what's coming up.
social media when we get to Italy, but other than that, it's just not really much to talk about. I guess we can not move on quickly, but some stand-up performances. Perez obviously miscalculated qualifying, decided to take his engine penalties, start at the back of the grid, and then get up to 8th, which is a very good result. Just based on like how difficult it is to overtake at that track, and probably underline the fact that Mercedes and Red Bull, especially this weekend, seem just utterly dominant. I think Verstappen lapped everyone except the 2 Mercedes behind him, and I think Hamilton would have done the same if he hadn't obviously pitted for fastest lap. And it does seem that these tracks that Red Bull are especially dominant at, they're really dominant over the rest of the grid, and we'll be able to lap them. I'm thinking back to Austria as well, where I think they lapped everyone else as well.
There are two things that it might be worth talking about, because I get the feeling that after we've talked about Italy, we're not going to remember anything else but those two. So, Giovinazzi and the Vettel and Schumacher and Mazepin incident in qualifying. I guess we talk about the Hasses first, because we're going to end up talking about Gio in a bit when we get to transfers as well. But What? Oh yeah, we did. The Hasses got involved in Italy as well, didn't they?
And Giovinazzi got involved as well. We got lots to. All the Italian Grand Prix is basically the Dutch Grand Prix Part 2, but better.
Yeah, it's filled with so much stuff. But I mean, I'll come back to. We'll move on to Italy, and I'll come back to those 2 points then.
Yeah,
because it's worth talking about them.
Yeah, unless there's, I guess, maybe the Williams in qualifying a bit. It's a bit weird to say a poor performance when they both get into Q2 and one almost gets into Q3. And again, this is something we'll again talk about in Italy with Russell getting some more points. I guess we'll cover Williams now. Actually, they've just been really good since the summer break. We've had a Russell. Or not even since Hungary, we've had Latifi has scored points at 2 of the last 4 races. Russell scored points at 3 of the last 4 with a podium in Belgium. Obviously, we can talk about that until the sun sets, but not with he did score the points, and you've got to give it to him under the rules. And it just seems that I think I said earlier in the season, as soon as 1 point score comes for Williams, they'll all start coming, and I'm quite happy to have been proven right.
Yeah, so they scored 7 in Hungary and then 13 in Belgium. So you're like, it wasn't just 1 point, was it? It wasn't doing what Alfa Romeo have done and just squeeze in there. They've gone, shoo, we are here now. I mean, Zandvoort was an off week for them. Russell tried his best to throw away his perfect qualifying record as well, didn't he? It was oh no, that's Italy as well. No,
no, it's just everything's Italy. We've got so much to talk about. But I guess just it was an off weekend for Williams. But when you compare it to last year, even 2018, last year was 2020. God, the time is going. Last year, 2019, it shows just a big up and up, and it's good to have them back, even potentially into the lower midfield rather than at the back with the Alfa Romeos and the Hasses.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're that much faster. I think more confidence for Latifi, definitely. It's he's not had many people to fight the rest of the season, has he? And now he's got some practice, and of course, just a little bit of luck. They just really needed some luck, and they've got it. Yeah, and it's good for them.
So now we'll get on to the race that we've been talking about for basically all of this review, the Italian Grand Prix. Arguably the best race of the season. I'll let you think about whether that statement is correct as I run through the results. Ricciardo in first in the McLaren with a McLaren 1-2 with Norris in second. Bottas in third in the Mercedes, Leclerc in fourth for the Ferrari, with Perez in fifth after a 5-second time penalty. Then we had Sainz in sixth. God, his name is difficult to say. Then we had Stroll in seventh in the Aston Martin, returning to the points. Alonso in eighth in the Alpine. Russell gaining 2 more points in the Williams in ninth, and Ocon in 10th. I think we might have to make this one a bit more structured because there is a lot to talk about. So what we'll do is we'll start with, I guess, the sprint qualifying. We'll ignore the normal qualifying. Bottas putting it on pole just ahead of Hamilton, but starting with sprint qualifying, a bit of a poor performance from Hamilton. Well, not even a poor performance, just a poor start, which really, really cost him in the end, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It was. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it just sometimes these things happen, didn't it? I guess he's really lucky he didn't get caught up with Gasly, because although I guess in the long run maybe he would have scored points if he was down at the back. Who knows? But then Verstappen wouldn't have crashed, you know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we can say he was lucky he wasn't caught up with Gasly. I think we're allowed to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Obviously, Gasly was on his outside around the Curva Grande before, obviously, like his front wing failed. Good to see that the impact wasn't so severe. Gravel runoff really working well there, and he did well to sort of minimise the collision by sort of steering into the barrier rather than going into it head on. But yeah, good to see. Gasly was okay, and then Hamilton just guess he was in fifth on the track, and then obviously with Bottas's penalty putting him to the back of the grid, he started fourth on the day. And Verstappen, who initially it seemed that Red Bull weren't as strong at Monza, putting it eventually on the pole, which didn't bode well for any Hamilton fans, such as myself, for the race on Sunday, did it?
No, I guess not. I think it's not necessarily that Verstappen was on pole. It was that you had I would argue, faster cars of the McLarens in between them. And that really did prove to be the issue. And frankly, they proved to be faster, didn't they? They were even straight off the start. Ricardo was straight in there, down the inside of turn one, easy done. And then he's not off, but he's doing enough of a job. And Norris was just too fast for Hamilton to get past.
Yeah. Yeah, so as you mentioned at the start, Ricardo doing something I'd noticed a lot of the time it happened at the start of F2 races, starting in second but getting enough up the inside that he managed to force his way into first around that first corner. Hamilton was also did the same thing past Norris, and here we come on to the first controversy of the race, the Verstappen-Hamilton turn 4 incident, which is sort of the first part of the second part drama, or the two-part drama. I mean, first off, do you think that Verstappen was okay to sort of do what he did, forcing Hamilton out and making him lose that position back to Norris?
No. Basically, no. I don't think my opinions on the stewards can be like isolated into one question. Because the rules, I think most people can agree they're either not good enough or just completely not fit for purpose. I think just because they didn't collide doesn't make it acceptable, and that seems to be the stance of the stewards. If there's no collision, they don't even bother investigating it, and I would change that. Or they've got the other option of just being way less lenient. No. You know what? I'm going to leave it no, and then I will explain later
we'll come back to it.
You're going to get so bored otherwise.
But the first half of the race was fairly standard. Obviously, actually, we had the Giovinazzi Sainz incident at the same corners. Very unfortunate for Giovinazzi, who since his seat has come under threat, has been performing out of his skin, especially in qualifying, but getting slightly unlucky during the race, and I think probably deserves better finishes from where he's starting. I mean, in Zandvoort, he was just, I think, forced off around that sort of like sweeping straight. And
he got mugged. He got hit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, that's fine. And then, he got mugged and I think had a puncture halfway through, which really put him out. And then obviously here he got probably his fault, drifting over too much and then being pitched by Sainz into the wall. But he's been performing well in qualifying, especially in an Alfa Romeo, which isn't as fast as a lot of these top drivers, and putting it in the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, he gave us a lovely view of that red, white, and green livery they had for the weekend. But I don't think he would have wanted to do that. From my opinion, that's his fault. I can't remember why he was on over the curbs. I don't think that bit was his fault. But, there's a car there, just didn't know, just didn't check or didn't see or blind spot, whatever. Nothing you can do about it sometimes.
We'll come back to him a bit later when we talk about the driver transfers. But the first half of the race, fairly standard, fairly it seems to be a lot of the last few races have been fairly like the start has been fairly standard, and then we ramp it up right to the end, which I guess is how you want it. But that all changed when Verstappen came in for his first pit stop, and instead of the 2 second stop that we normally expect from Red Bull, it was 11 seconds long. I mean, what was your reaction when you saw that? Because I know I wasn't cheering, but I was just like screaming at the screen. It was like so shocking to see a Red Bull stop go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember. I was watching on highlights again, so I think I knew the result already. So it's like, at that point I was like, oh, they just don't do it. They just, they've done a Bottas in Monaco and they've not got him out. And then I was like, I don't know. I can't remember, but it was, it's a very odd thing to have to see Red Bull doing that. You'd associate that more with originally Haas and then probably Mercedes these days.
But yeah, that meant that Hamilton, who had got past Norris I think during the drama, who was up to I guess net third in the race, also came in for his stop, but he also had a slow stop, not quite as slow as the Red Bull, on 4 seconds this time, but this put him out in the path of he'd been overtaken by Norris, he'd lost that position, and then Hamilton and Verstappen coming out together round the first chicane. Hamilton does what Verstappen does to Hamilton. Oh God.
Everyone.
It's so confusing. Hamilton repeats the turn 4 lap 1 incident, forcing Verstappen out wide, but this time Verstappen doesn't give, gets pitched up on the curb over Hamilton's car and puts them both out of the race. I mean, arguably, like we talk about the Silverstone incident, but this is part 2 of the drivers coming together, the fighting for the title and fighting on track, and just ending up being like both very much worse off.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. Hamilton was not the worst off on Silverstone, but he's a fairly lucky man, I think. I watched the slow-mo video for the first time when I was reminding myself of what happened, and good thing we've got a halo, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So obviously we saw the Red Bull go over like it was driving down the halo. Hamilton did get hit by Verstappen's rear right tire, and like without the halo, it could have been so much worse, because he would have had like the weight of an F1 car, which are quite heavy beasts these days, on his head. And it was very, very lucky that we do have the halo, and just again, like, it has shown itself to be a good safety measure that we did probably need an F1.
Yeah, and it's not the first time. That's I think it's questionable whether it would have killed them, I think. But that's not a conversation we should be having, frankly. If you're having that conversation, then it's a very good thing you've got the halo. It's not the first time that it saved someone's life. And I'm very glad we've got it in F2 and F3 as well. And just every form of motorsport. I mean, I've been watching IndyCar, and there's been times when I think there was I can't remember which oval race it was, but there was another time that a tire bounced off their aero screens. These devices looks not great, but holy moly, safety brilliant.
So yeah, obviously this, I'd say, the third incident where the halo has helped save someone from serious injury. We saw back to 2018 Belgian Grand Prix when Alonso went over the top of Leclerc's car. This incident over the last week where Verstappen would have come down a lot heavier on Verstappen's car, I should say, would have come down a lot heavier on Hamilton's head. And then we think back to Bahrain 2020, where it undoubtedly saves Romain Grosjean's life by not allowing him to be not like heavily injured in that inferno. And I think we have sort of been lucky before that we never really had these incidents, because you think that's 3 in 3 years or 3 in 4 years now when we didn't have anything, or we were lucky that there was only 2 in maybe 20 years from Ayrton Senna's death up until the tragic loss of Jules Bianchi that brought in this incident where we saw the Bianchi crash, and possibly Master's incident in Hungary where he was hit by Barrichello's wheel nut. So I think everyone was against, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people were against the halo at the start, but it has proved itself that it is a necessary safety measure. And I think that the 2022 cars will go a long way to also alleviating some of the maybe design the design flaws that people had with the current halo design.
Yeah, I can't be more grateful for it, to be honest. I can't add anything to that. You said it well. I would love to see more stuff put in before we need something to inspire people, but that's just not how public opinion works. If they don't see the potential consequences of something, then we might not have those safety changes. So yeah, you're right. We were lucky before, and it should have been there sooner. And but that's all right. We got it now. Hopefully, we'll get more and more and more stuff.
Yeah. But now, I mean, if we go back to the incident, who's at fault, or is it a racing incident? Because I mean, I'll let you give your thoughts, and then I'll give mine. But like, what do you think?
Okay, so we're going. I've prepped for this. We're going full in. At the moment, the way the FIA rules work, they look at something if there's a collision, and then they're very strict on who's at fault. They look at the rules in incredible detail. What I would like to see them do is be both less lenient, more lenient. God, we'll get it right. More lenient, and I'd like them to examine incidents where collisions don't happen, because at the moment there is kind of not the incentive to get out of the way, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Like we saw it in Silverstone. So Hamilton on the inside of Copse, he just sticks it there because he knows that if Verstappen turns in on him, he's going to come out the better, or maybe he doesn't care at that point. Fine, you both get taken out. He gets a 3-place grid penalty. Yeah, maybe he thought he had the corner. But if, like later on, Charles Leclerc, I believe he was overtaking, also in the same corner, also in the same way. If they collided, then he gets a penalty again. However, they did not collide because of Leclerc's actions, not Hamilton's. Hamilton has done nothing different. He's done the same actions that have got him penalised the first time, and he's got nothing for it because Leclerc doesn't want to die. It seems like Verstappen and Hamilton are not giving each other a quarter, and now we see that the FIA rules are not what they should be. Basically, my point is that before I've even said my opinion on the accident, is I think the FIA should be looking at all incidents where rules are broken, not where one's broken and then cause a collision. So if the FIA continue doing it as they were, they've got the right decision. That's my opinion. But what should have happened is they should have looked at it earlier. Verstappen should have got a penalty on lap 1, which we mentioned earlier. That's my opinion.
Okay. So I think I understand what you're saying, I guess, about the whole predict. It's almost, I don't think the FIA are able to predict or should be penalising on a predicted outcome, because obviously you don't know if maybe Leclerc gets touched by Hamilton but just twitches. He doesn't fly off into the gravel. We don't know the consequences of a potential collision, and I think that's possibly why the FIA can't regulate for that. But I will say that if there is if there is a collision, then we need to have a collision, however minor, we need to have a look at it, because we've seen this happen before, especially in corners like these between Verstappen and Hamilton. Imola, like You've essentially got exactly the same thing. You've got a car on the inside. This time it's Verstappen forcing the car on the outside out of the corner and over the runoff area. We see that, and we've seen that in Imola. We saw that on lap one, and to a certain extent, we saw that in Spain. I guess I would be probably contradicting myself if I said we have to investigate the Spain one, but then not the Britain one because there wasn't a collision. But you've got to think that if I'd say the Imola one especially is something that probably did need to be looked at because, or if we need to be more consistent, that if the car on the outside on the outside gives up the corner, that's because of driving they haven't been allowed the room. So Hamilton in Imola had to give up the corner, had to go to the runoff area, was lucky to not lose a position to Perez, who I think had a poor exit out of that chicane. Otherwise, he would have been ahead. Lap one, like he did, Hamilton is forced out wide again. He goes over the curves again. He loses a position to Norris and drops down to fourth. And arguably, that meant that in the long term they were together on the track because realistically, Hamilton would have been behind Verstappen, would have been shadowing Verstappen, wouldn't have been stuck behind Norris for as long as he was. And then we see this incident. Verstappen this time doesn't give up the corner, or doesn't not give up the corner, but tries to hang in there rather than going over a runoff area, rather than not giving up, rather than giving away the corner based on not dirty driving, but driving that has gone over the line from Hamilton. And then that time that ends with them both in the gravel. I think the FIA needs to be clear that you have to leave a car's width on the corner. I think Hamilton and Verstappen have both been at fault this season for not doing that. And I think potentially it only gets worse as the title race gets closer and closer to the finish. And the FIA probably do need to clamp down on it before something worse, not something worse, but before it gets out of hand.
Yeah, I've thought of a more succinct way of putting it. At the moment, if you're alongside and if you don't steer out of something and you'd cause a collision otherwise, and you're not sure who's at fault, then what do you do? If you steer out of it, you have no recourse. You've got no way of getting that back, even if you believe you're in the right and they should give you racing room. Or you can hold it in there. Maybe you cause a collision, maybe you don't. Maybe you come off the best, maybe you don't. But you feel that you're in the right and that they're the one that's going to receive the punishment. That can't happen. If you believe you're in the right, but you're about to cause a collision anyway, then you pull out of it. You get the FIA's judgment on your side and you come out the winner. Great. Even if you're in the wrong, you've only lost a small amount. I think that's what it should be. And I also believe that the rules are too complicated at the moment. That when the commentators who do this for a daily job, they turn up every week and they flip through, or they should be anyway. They don't know what's going on. The drivers don't know. The teams don't know. It's too complicated. So you should stop people. I don't know. It's difficult. How can you say that a car is halfway alongside when you're driving at 200 miles an hour?
Yeah.
I say.
Yeah, you go. You finish.
No, let them race, and then if you've got to the position, it should just be a little bit alongside. If you're forcing people off the track, if you're shoving it in there, maybe that's an issue. But it's so difficult to say. But I don't think it works the way it is.
Yeah, I think the problem probably is initially it is probably Hamilton at fault for not leaving the room. And that's the part of the corner. Oh, that's the part that we've seen a lot happen this season. Verstappen didn't leave the room in Imola, didn't leave it first lap, and then Hamilton didn't leave it here. It's the second part that is more on Verstappen. He should recognise that probably because now there isn't the room, you've got to be giving it up. You've got to accept that. Oh, I've been hard done by here, but let's live to fight another day. We can maybe get him back. But instead he tries to hold the corner, jumps over the curb, and I think that's probably what the FIA are looking at the moment, they do, as you say, they do need to be looking at the first part of the whole incident, which is you've got to be leaving the room, but on merit, and especially between these two, after what we've seen this season, I prefer precedent over changing the rules. And I think if we're going to hold the precedent that Hamilton and Verstappen won't leave each other the room on the outside of a chicane, then we need to hold up for the rest of the season and penalise that second half. And that's what we've seen in Italy, and to a certain extent is what we saw in Silverstone. I mean, one thing I'd probably ask you is the penalty. Would you say that that's a fair penalty? And I guess the second part, is it more or less harsh than the Hamilton penalty in Silverstone?
Yeah, that's tricky, isn't it? It's not. They have two different systems, isn't it? There's no point giving Verstappen a 10-second penalty when he's stuck in the gravel trap. So it's the same as if the race was over. Well, no, I guess it's not the same as if the race was over. They might give 10 seconds then, but it's just a different system. Again, in hindsight, 3-place grid penalty, Verstappen's just going to take his engines anyway. It's not actually a 3-place grid penalty. It's you start at the back and get a new engine. That's the system that's how that works. And 10-second penalty in hindsight at Silverstone meant nothing to Hamilton. He went on and won the race anyway. So yeah, I guess Verstappen's come off a fraction worse, but in both those occasions they've not actually lost much.
Yeah, so I think probably they are fair between the two. I think maybe if Verstappen had just taken an engine, he might have been a bit more aggrieved. But even then, the Red Bull is a lot faster than everyone else on the majority of tracks. I think Monza was probably maybe an exception with McLaren, and we'll definitely talk about McLaren in the next few minutes. But on most tracks, you're thinking that it's Red Bull versus Mercedes for that win, and that the 3 places will be like a disadvantage for the first stint before the pit stops, and then we get past, and then we're fine. Maybe they finish second instead of first. Maybe it's a 7-point swing. But then again, maybe if Hamilton hadn't got past Leclerc, then that would have been a 7-point swing. I think, to be honest, it probably was fair enough, and I think that the 2 penalties on balance were probably equal.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the penalty system as it is, yeah, they wouldn't, unless you're. What else would you do? You can't give a race ban for that. You can't give. What else? What is there? What else would you give Verstappen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. I think just what else would you give him? He'll take his engines probably here, unless they think they can maybe make those up, and then they can take the engines where they're on tracks they're traditionally strong at, maybe like Brazil, if that goes ahead, or Mexico. But maybe they'll take it here, finish third probably behind Hamilton, Bottas 1-2, because like Mercedes are just dominant at Sochi, and then just go from there. But I mean, we've quite a civil conversation about this whole incident. Well, one place that's not had a civil conversation is Twitter. Like, you can't. It has got worse, but why has it got worse? I think I don't want to say it's Drive to Survive, or I don't want to say it's the new Drive to Survive fans, because I imagine that there are a lot of new fans that are very civil, like do want to engage in the community like very well. But I think the problem with things like that is it builds up it puts the drivers on pillars, and then it's almost like followers, and you have to be a Hamilton stan or a Verstappen stan, and they can't do anything wrong. And if your driver collides with another driver, then suddenly you have to have a 12-hour argument about the intricacies of the rules and things like that. And it just seems like it's almost getting worse, and something needs to sort of be done.
Yeah, so I like this topic of conversation. I'm the publicity officer for WF1 for a reason. So curse. So when Liberty took over, there was no F1 social media. There was nothing. I think there's a Bernie quote where he says something along the lines of, "If people want to come and watch a race, they'll come and watch a race." And he's advocating against it. Chase Carey, when he came in, completely the opposite. So everyone is set up with, all the teams are on social media. They interact with F1. All the drivers are there. Great. But the other thing Liberty want is that traditional sports team following. And you're dead right about that. That's artificial's a bit mean way of putting it. But behind the scenes, they are definitely engineering it so that that's the case. So Fantasy League, that's something they set up. If you go on there, then you can join one team or the other. When you look at the teams now, they've all got when you do the competitions, they've got competitions on there. You have to put down what team you'd like, what team hat, or whatever. I remember Aston Martin earlier this year giving away hats to what was their slogan when they introduced the car?
It was like "I am F1" or something.
Yeah, something like that, exactly. Basically, social media and Liberty are raking in those dollars, so they're happy with it. Yeah, and it really helps that we're having a close championship fight, which we haven't had since 2014, 2016.
Yeah, I think it's just it's keeping it away from being toxic in a way. Especially, I mean, I think I'm not gonna blame any like fan bases here, but it does seem to be the ones that are more at the top end of the grid, the Hamilton fans, the Verstappen fans, and I guess to some extent, well, it's hard. It's a lot more visible in the Hamilton and Verstappen fans just because there is such a close rivalry between the two, and then you have to almost back your driver. But I think you got to recognise that sometimes it is one driver's fault for a collision. It is if Red Bull are saying it's a racing incident, it's probably Verstappen's fault. If Mercedes are saying it's a racing incident and Red Bull are blaming Hamilton, it's probably Hamilton's fault. You just got to look at just try and be as non-biased as possible, really, and just take yourself out of the whole like toxic atmosphere that I'm gonna be honest, I think a few teams, Red Bull especially, have begun to foster over the last year. Or not over the last few months. Because Red Bull they just seem to be encouraging it a bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. There's that's the way F1 is gonna go, It's just kind of like with all this content, it's just the teams like it. If they have dedicated fans, they have people who want to buy more merch, especially that, because how else do you support your team? You have more interaction on social media. It's just modern life. I think that's the way it happens, to be honest. And I don't think it's not something I'm gonna go, bring back Bernie, it was terrible. You see some people. Everyone thinks their generation of F1 is the best. It's going to change. Some things you're going to like, some things you're not. I'm really grateful that we're getting closer racing next year. I'm really grateful that we're having more content. I'm really grateful that this title fight is happening. So I'll take it.
Yeah, and we'll wait and see how it goes, whether it gets any worse, and whether even our next two or one of our next two drivers that we'll talk about maybe can come up from behind if Verstappen and Hamilton keep colliding. That being Lando Norris and his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, putting in the first 1-2 of the season, surprisingly, for McLaren. I mean, you can't turn down a Daniel Ricciardo win, especially with how fun and smiley he is. It just seems it's such a good thing to see, especially after sort of the struggles he's had this season. And I don't think anyone was necessarily maybe angry oh god, can't talk half the time. Maybe angry at a Ricciardo win and a Norris second place.
Yeah, no, I forgot we were talking about Italy for a minute. Yes. Sorry, I've now distracted myself. Yeah, no, McLaren 1-2, great. First 1-2 of the season. First 1-2 for McLaren since 2008. I love the Hamilton and Button team, so that's great. Ricardo and Norris. Yes, I think people were expecting Ricardo to come in to be the new, better Sainz, the bromance, whatever, and that's not been the case. And Ricardo's not clicked with the team as well. And hopefully that changes. Maybe there's some magic in that shoe juice somewhere, but yeah, people like McLaren. They've got history. They're an underdog story, kind of from the last few years. They were, the original Williams, GP2 engine, whatever. Norris is likable. Ricardo is likable. You cannot be upset that this result has happened. Please.
Yeah, I mean, I was quite surprised that this was Norris's first second place. It does seem weird. He's been on the podium at not quite a few, but a lot of the more dramatic races. But it is just good to see McLaren on the podium, both back there for the first time since 2012, Brazil, their first win in 9 years, the first 1-2 in even longer, and the most points that any team has scored since the double points finale in 2014. The first time that I think a team has got the 1-2 and the fastest lap point, and it's just good to see, especially just having them back on the podium and seeing a Shui, which I love Bottas's reaction to, just like the look of disgust when he saw them drinking from Ricardo's shoe.
Yeah, it's been a good weekend for Bottas memes, isn't it? Yeah, disgust or not, it is disgusting. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's awful.
But it's one of those. It's party atmosphere. Disgusting, isn't it? It's like, oh no, do it again.
I drank at the wrong time there, but yeah, it's definitely something that is good to see, and I guess it helps them in the Constructors' Championship, which we'll run through quickly. So Red Bull 3. Oh no, I have to say 0.5 now. Oh, this is awful. So Red Bull 362.5, Mercedes 344.5, McLaren on 215, Ferrari on 201.5. Alpine on 95, AlphaTauri on 84, Aston Martin on 59, Williams up to 22, Alfa Romeo on 3 points, and Haas will never score a point this season. Yeah, but it's given them a 14 and a half point gap. I hate these half points. Can we just all collectively agree just to get rid of half a point from Sainz, Verstappen, and Hamilton's totals, so I don't have to keep reading them out. But it does help in the title fight between Ferrari, and to be honest, Ferrari have been doing well as well. And I think it's just good to see a lot of competition throughout the table, really. You got a top 1, top 3, top 5 battle, even maybe not even a top 8 now, because Williams have sort of jumped away. But it's just good to see competition throughout the grid.
Yeah, we should set up a petition. Save Rolls Boys. Eliminate all half points from any races entirely. Rejig the entire point system so that all points are now even numbers. And we'll sort it. Don't worry, we'll get that sorted for you next season. But yeah, until then, I guess we'll have to talk about the actual championship. Yeah, no, there are good championship battles all down the field. We'll not talk about the bottom 3. That's fine. Yeah, I think they're pretty set. I don't see Alfa Romeo coming back and scoring. How many points Williams got now? Was it 30?
22. They've got 22
okay.
Now.
All right, still a lot, yes. But what we're on, McLaren and Ferrari, right? Ferrari had a good race as well. That's fine. Can you pick a winner out of those two? They've both had good races and bad races.
It's hard to say because you think. So what tracks have we got left? We got your Russia, Turkey, and Abu Dhabi. We don't really, or not Abu Dhabi, Turkey and Jeddah. We don't really know. Qatar is still rumored. We obviously don't know about that. Your Kota, it's hard to say. That's more. I think that'll be like a 50-50 one. Maybe it's more of a Ferrari track. Maybe it's more of a McLaren. Your Mexico and your Brazil, that's probably more of a McLaren, or your Brazil especially. If Red Bull and McLaren seem to have a fairly similar track type where they're good at, because we saw in Austria, McLaren did really well. So maybe a Brazil and a Mexico, that's where they might dominate, and then Abu Dhabi. I think it's hard to say. I feel like I remember back to your 2018 to your 2017s. You sort of knew which cars were going to be good at which tracks. Your slow, twisty ones were a Red Bull, like your high downforce were Red Bull tracks. Your quick, flowing ones were Mercedes and Ferrari. But now it just doesn't seem to have. There's no track type that really suits. Maybe Mercedes especially. They seem to be just showing up like periodically. Sometimes they're really good. I guess Italy was probably one of them they would have been really good at. Hamilton hadn't crashed, but even Bottas made his way from 20th to third on the grid, or third at the finish line. So, but it just doesn't feel like that there is we know who's going to be good at this track, because we think back to France, Ferrari were terrible at that track, when maybe it would have been one that ideally might have suited them.
That was a long way of saying that you don't want to call it. All right, shall I call it?
Yeah, you call it.
McLaren have had a tendency of finishing strong, I think, but with Jeddah and Abu Dhabi, the last two, I think that's more Ferrari. So I'm going to say Ferrari.
Yeah, but to be honest, we don't know. Who would have predicted that a week ago, just a week and a half ago, Hamilton and Verstappen would end up in a gravel track, and McLaren would take a 1-2 victory. But unless there's anything else, I think that's it for the Italian Grand Prix.
I can't. I'm sure we could talk all day about it, but
yeah, we've definitely missed something. But we'll move on from the Italian Grand Prix to driver transfers. There have been finally the silly season commenced with the driver transfers starting just now I have to remember the dates. Just after Belgium, between Belgium and Zandvoort, with Kimi retiring.
Oh, was it?
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm sure Kimi. Yeah, okay. We'll say yes, because he retired and he hasn't raced since. So.
Oh yeah. So, yep, Kimi retiring after 20 years in the sport. I mean, it's going to be sad to see him go. He's always been an ever-present source of just lightheartedness in a way. You can. Everyone's got their favorite Kimi quote. It's just a hobby for me. Leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. Gloves and steering wheel. But it's going to be it's sad to see him go, and it almost feels like our childhood generation of F1, the 2005 to maybe 2015, is coming to an end when we lose. If we lose Vettel, Alonso, and Hamilton, it's sort of it.
Oh, wow, 2005 is pretty optimistic for me, but yeah, I guess so. Yeah, Rosberg went so early, didn't he? That was kind of the first one. I was like, oh, all right then. Yeah, and he's just old now, isn't he? Alonso's back. I don't like them being there. I think I like what Rosberg did. I like that he knew that he wanted to have a life outside of F1. He then didn't go and do that, but that's not the point. Yeah, it's nice to have him there, but I don't want him taking up young driver seats. And I think it's time. It's past time, Kimi. We'll miss you.
Yeah, I think that's what. Yeah, I think that's what most people think. But then after Zandvoort, I hope I'm right. After Zandvoort, Bottas was announced in the Alfa Romeo seat shortly. Actually, no, we'll cover Bottas first, because he doesn't get enough respect, and I think Alfa Romeo for Bottas is the perfect seat. He's an experienced driver who will bring a lot to a team that are sort of struggling at the moment, able to get maybe 1 or 2 points finishes a season, but he'll bring that experience for a 2022 car that's completely different. And I think ultimately probably the best thing that Alfa Romeo could have done.
Yeah, and for now, I guess so. There are pretty limited numbers of seats left this season. People are really locked in for 2022. They didn't want to swap drivers, which I understand. In my magic headcanon land, he would have gone where Vettel went last year. Actually, no, I would have kept. Well, I kicked Stroll out. That's not the point. I would have liked to see him. Yeah, I would like to see him where Vettel is. Where he's got a car where he's got a chance of getting to the podium like Vettel has. And hopefully Alfa Romeo will give him that next season. Because I do genuinely think he is a good driver. And a lot of people just seem to think he's come out of nowhere and done nothing and just been handed the fastest car. And that's just not the case. Is he a number 2 driver? Unfortunately, yes. Because he doesn't get off to a good start. And in any season, it seems, he's just not able to compete at the level that Hamilton is. But we've just seen there's one driver on the grid who can. So, well, maybe Russell can. Who knows? The point being, Bottas is good. I hope Alfa Romeo give him the seat he deserves, the car he deserves next year.
Yeah, I think that's what. Sorry, I think that's what most people think, and I think that it will be a good partnership, and for a few more years of his career. But that left a Mercedes seat open, and the day later, which I'm going to quickly say I respect Mercedes for doing that, giving Bottas his day, just to let everyone take in what he's done. He's moving away from a team he's been at for I think it's 5 years now, and letting him have that moment rather than immediately overshadowing it by obviously Russell going to Mercedes. And I think that was probably the best decision. And I think ultimately this is the thing everyone's been waiting for. Like, we all expected this to happen this year. It was just a matter of when Russell made the move, and he has now. He's moved to Mercedes for 2022 and could be a potentially spicy lineup between him and Hamilton fighting with Verstappen for that 2022 title.
Yeah, I mean, you said everyone thought that was happening. I didn't. I thought Toto was just going to keep Bottas forever. Yes, hopefully. I don't want the Rosberg Hamilton thing where they throw hats at each other and get pissy. I want the Hamilton Button thing where they both win championships. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm a bit of a, I guess, British fanboy. That doesn't really, yeah. I don't know if that counts, but yeah, I'm glad to see 2 British drivers in the team, and I hope they get on well, and I hope they compete for the title stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this. Not like people have talked about this in the WhatsApp group. I think what I was thinking with like Hamilton and Rosberg is they were almost higher in terms of friendship, so they had further to fall when it got dicey. Whereas you think like Hamilton, your Buttons, they were never really friends. It was more of a business relationship, and I think that's maybe what you'll see with a Hamilton Russell, possibly combined with sort of like a mentor-mentee, like changing of the guard, handing over of the baton. And I think that I don't think you are going to see a Hamilton like Rosberg style bust up between the two. Maybe you'll get like an on-track moment, but I think it will be smoothed over as like more like a Hamilton Bottas incident as opposed to a Hamilton Rosberg incident that was a lot more acrimonious.
Yeah, I think when we saw Hamilton and Alonso clash, and when we saw Hamilton Rosberg clash, at both points, those drivers are at similar situations in their careers, or at like similar ages. This is not that case. It might, yeah. I mean, 2007 with Alonso. It was 2007, wasn't it? It was 2007.
Yeah.
2007 with Alonso. Alonso was a 2-time champion, and you have the young kid come in. But hopefully what Hamilton will know is George is hella quick already, and he won't get upset with that. And Alonso's not exactly known for getting on well with people anyway. So yes, hopefully, because they're at different stages in their careers, and Hamilton should have respect for George already, then it'll be great. It should be a good relationship and a good, something to follow for the years to come.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because obviously he's 36 now, I think. He is coming into the latter stages of his career. 2022 potentially could be the last season he does. Maybe it probably won't be 2021. He'll do a short retirement, but you'd think that maybe 2022, 2023 could be his last years, and then sort of Russell becomes a team leader, possibly with a driver beside him, maybe like a Gasly, maybe they even bring in Van Dorn or Verline back. But I think for the moment, I think the relationship should work well and will be a very, very supremely difficult pairing to beat over the 2022 season. But that left another seat available, this time at Williams, that went to Alex Albon. I mean, what did you want? There were a lot of drivers linked to that seat. I think Albon, De Vries, maybe even potentially a Nico Hulkenberg coming back into F1. So were you sort of happy with Albon returning?
I like F2. I like F2 and F3, and obviously I like Porsche because he's so young and he's come through and he's won everything. But also, who's won everything? Oscar Piastri, and he's about to win F2. So they weren't even in the frame. I would like to see someone from F2 next year in F1, but it's not going to happen, I don't think. So kind of no, but also Albon, young driver from F2, not had a good. I don't know whether he's had a good opportunity or not. It's really tricky. We're seeing with Perez that even very experienced drivers are having trouble keeping up with Max, whether that's the car, whether that's Max. I'm not even going to start that debate. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have any particular feelings about it. It's kind of, yeah, I guess for the team, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think I think it's the Josh Rebel video, really, or yeah, I think that's the right one. Really puts into perspective. I think Albon, he did. I think he was pushed up too early and then probably dropped too early as well. I think we have to he's been given another chance, and I think that's a lot more than a lot of drivers get. So he probably does need to take it, but I think he is probably worthy of that other chance. And I guess we'll cover the last seat that's sort of still up for grabs, the second Alfa Romeo seat. There's rumours of Guan Yu Zhou coming into the seat. Obviously, they could keep Giovinazzi and then Porsche, sort of an outside bet. Personally, out for that seat, I think the most sensible decision, unless Guan Yu Zhou's backers chuck huge amounts of money at that seat, is to keep Giovinazzi for one more year and then bring in Porsche for 2023. You're giving quite a young youngster another year of experience, keeping a driver that knows what they're doing over a regulation change, and eventually allowing the new driver to come in for 2023. So, I mean, personally, that's what I'd do, but I don't know about you.
I've got different thinking. Bottas isn't going to be there for very long. He's used to driving cars that are quick, and maybe as his career goes down the other side, he might step out quickly. I don't know whether that's the case or not. But now is the time, especially with a new car, because everyone has to learn it, to put a new driver in. However, Porsche is probably 1 year away from where he should be. Piastri's signed to the Alpine Driver Academy, and while they're a bit useless with promoting their drivers, they're probably not going to let him go that quick. And maybe he's not even ready, because he's in his rookie year in F2. He's got to come out of nowhere so quickly. Yeah, I mean, I can't hide it. I would like a young driver in there, especially in 22, especially with Bottas there. Giovinazzi, he's not gonna he's not race winning caliber, I think.
Yeah, I think I saw this on Twitter, is that this time the F2 calendar has really messed up the whole idea of promotion, because we had sort of all these seats sorted out by round, like before round 5 of 8 had even started. You don't know, like you're only halfway through the F2 season. You don't know if there's going to be a late season charge like a Mick Schumacher last season, whether Guan Yu Zhou will go on a rampage, whether Piastri will close it out. And then another issue is that if they win this title, they can't do it again. And that's probably the problem you've seen with a lot of drivers, especially like I'm thinking of Callum Ilott, who he was in the frame for Alfa Romeo and now is over in IndyCar, like because he never really got the opportunity. It was a bit unfortunate that he was over in IndyCar, because he could have got a drive if when Kimi Räikkönen got COVID. Like, it just doesn't seem to be the options at the moment. And I think possibly something needs to be looked at in terms of the scheduling and in terms of allowing like young drivers to show that they've got the ability to perform before all these seats are closed out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the solution to that is putting all the F2 races at the first half of the calendar. I think that's ridiculous. And I don't know what other solution you could possibly provide. But yeah, I mean, you try and link F2 into sprint races somehow. I think Toto's said something about wanting a third seat. It's a really tricky one. But yeah, if the situation is Oscar Piastri wants to lose the championship, then you've got to change it somehow. I like F2 and F3. I think it's great, but yeah, that is the one thing that cheeses me off just a little bit.
Yeah, Alonso just needs to retire, and then we can let Piastri have an Alpine seat. But I guess that's it for the driver transfer. So we'll come to our final segment, the Russian Grand Prix preview. Everyone's favorite track. Yay. Oh, this track is awful. It's so bad. Like, I know we're meant to be enthusiastic, but it's terrible. That last sector is the worst sector in F1. I'm not even like, that is a fact. It's not an opinion. Maybe it's up there with Abu Dhabi's Sector 3, but at least that looks nice. Like, Sochi is just, it's grey, it's lifeless. And the only possible hope is that it might rain.
Okay, sure. I wouldn't even be hopeful then. No, I can't add anything to that. It's terrible. We're moving to Agora Drive in 23. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll be better, but it is also a Tilke track, so yeah, maybe not.
Yeah. So I mean, why does it have to be Sochi? It's just such a waste of time. At least this is potentially the final bad track. We don't know about the changes to Abu Dhabi, but this is the last track where it's not even, it shouldn't be difficult to overtake. There's 2 long straights. It's just that third sector ruins any chance of overtaking on the front straight, unless you've got a massively quicker car, just because it's so like right angled. It's just right angle, and then 2 more right angles onto the straight. It's just boring.
Yeah, I mean, you've forgotten about Jeddah. I think we're far from done with bad tracks, but yeah. You could talk about Verstappen at the back. I can't remember. How easy is it to overtake around Sochi?
That's I don't know, because I don't know. Mate, like, we know Mercedes will probably win. Like, that's probably gonna, like, unless something amazing happens and like the 2020 season, or 2021 season, sorry, if anything amazing was going to happen, it would be this season. But Mercedes have won every race since it came back onto the calendar. They even won the 2 races that were previously called the Russian Grand Prix, even before the championship was a thing in 1913 and 1950. They're unbeaten in over 100 years at this track. If you want, I mean, a Mercedes win seems nailed on, especially if Verstappen does take his engine penalty. And that's the problem. It just seems it's a dull track. It's a one-stop strategy because tarmac is smooth. There's no tire degradation. I remember, I think it was 2015 or 2016. Rosberg locks up his tires, massive lockup, goes on the hards and manages to get to the end of the race after pitting on lap 1. And I'm not sure that should be possible. And it's just such a soulless, lifeless track.
Russian roulette. 1 in 6 tires will run and explode every 20 laps. There you go.
That's what we need. That's genuine. It's not. It will hopefully be an interesting race. Like we've got to hope and pray. And it might rain. I'm not going to say it will rain because then I'll jinx it. But the forecast does seem to have showers in the air. If we do get maybe a variable condition race, like it's showering halfway through, then dries, then showers. That's the rate. That's the sort of thing that could spice it up. But it's Russia. There's not really much to it.
I can't say anything else. Whoa.
No.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do our prediction. We'll do our predictions anyway. So, what do we think So what we'll do is we're going to make this a bit more official. We'll come back to it next week and see who wins. So, do you want to give me your top 3?
Okay. Yeah. You forgot to say we're doing this every week now. So make sure I'm going to use this opportunity around the end of the video. Go to either the Raw Sport Spotify or our YouTube. That's Warwick F1 Society on YouTube, and you can watch us every week. Brilliant. Right, now predictions. I've had time to think.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, if you're putting it in the comments, just put your top 3 and then 3 sort of random predictions from throughout the weekend. It can be qualifying. It can be the race. It can even be practice if you're feeling brave enough.
Okay. Can I go now?
Yeah, go.
Yeah, okay, all right.
What would you put for your top 3?
I'm not sure I want to go. We're going to go Hamilton, Bottas, and Perez. It's boring as it comes.
So you've gone. So Hamilton, Bottas, Perez, and then I'll let you think about your sort of 3 random ones. But I'm, it's Sochi. I'm gonna have to go for the same thing. I'm gonna have to go, well, not the same thing. I'm gonna go Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen. I think he'll make his way up to the front and just finish third, probably 15, 20 seconds behind, maybe even getting the fastest lap point on the way.
Okay.
So, what about your 3 just random predictions from throughout the weekend?
Okay. Latifi Q2.
Okay.
Is that random enough?
No, yeah, it can be.
Okay.
It's just anything that could go on over the week.
All right. Latifi in Q2. Then we're going to go safety car lap 1.
Yeah.
And then we'll finish off with I would say Mazepin gets in someone's way, but that happens every week. The 2 Haas cars crash out, crash into each other. There you go.
So Haas's crash each other.
In each other, yeah.
I am. This is real student broadcasting. I'm just writing these down, right? So I've just said about how it's only a 1 stop, but I'm going to go 3+ stops for the majority of the grid. Thinking it is going to be a variable one. So 3+ stops for grid.
Okay.
Ooh. Oh,
we should think these up beforehand, shouldn't we?
Yeah, we really should. It's the unpreparedness that everyone loves. I'm gonna say there will be, I think I'm gonna go double Williams points, and in the style of a Hungary, which was and then I will go for I think I'm going to go. Let's go Tsunoda into Q3 for the first time, because they raced here. He raced here last season, didn't he? I can't remember what his result was, but he's got experience at the track, so maybe this will be the one that he bounces back on after a string of poor performances. That I think, I mean, you can't really say the rookies have really struggled this season. I'm not sure. Well, two of them are in a Haas, and the other one is really being outperformed by his teammate, and I'm not sure really why.
Yeah, no, he started off pretty well, didn't he? I think you've gone braver than me on the predictions, so we'll have to see. But I think we agreed beforehand if we get all of them right, and unless it's like dumb and you've just said I don't know, Mazepin spins,
cars finish.
More than 5 finishes, great. If we get all 3 right, you just win the whole season. That's it.
Oh yeah. If you get everything right, you just win. We'll stop doing this, and you can just have, I don't know, all like you can just have everything.
That's it. It's a winner. It's a winner stays on. The other host leaves, and you get a new one in.
Yeah, but I think that's everything. Thank you for coming on, Jack. Thank you for helping me start this show up, and it should be a good thing to cover throughout the end of the 2021 season and into 2022, and we start the next season with the new cars, having seen the best title fight go down to the final lap in Abu Dhabi. I'm just like, you gotta say it, and it will come true.
Sure. I will see you next week, where we will have seen the Russian Grand Prix, and then it'll be my turn to host, because we've is it my turn? It is my turn, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or is it no? You get after Grand Prix, and then I get the off weeks, don't I?
Yeah, we're co-hosts.
All right.
There's no leader here. But yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And this has been the Warwick F1 Show.